It began at dawn on the fifth day, when the war was at its loudest. The sky over the Middle East glowed orange and gray. Smoke hung heavy above the cities, and the air vibrated with the constant roar of engines and explosions. In just 12 days, Israel and Iran had turned the desert into a storm. But this morning was different. This was the day everything changed. From his bunker outside Tel Aviv, American intelligence officer Daniel Reese stared at a live satellite feed on his monitor. It showed Tehran, glowing with heat signatures, too many to count. The attack countdown was already running. "They are striking back," said his commander, voice rough from no sleep. "Operation Iron Spear, approved 5 minutes ago. We hit over 100 Iranian targets before sunrise." Daniel looked at the screen. The map was covered in red markers. Over 150 locations scheduled to be struck in the next 24 hours. Oil fields. Command bases. Communication hubs. "Sir," Daniel said quietly, This isn't defense anymore. It's total war." Before his commander could answer, the sirens began. "Incoming," someone shouted. The monitors flashed red, Iranian missiles, already in the air. The timing was perfect. Both nations had launched their biggest operations at the exact same moment. The bunker shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lights flickered. The Iron Dome interceptors roared to life outside, streaking across the dawn sky. And then, silence. For a moment, no one moved. The command screens flickered again, switching to infrared view. What Daniel saw made his blood freeze. One of the Iranian missiles had gone off course, not toward a military site, but toward a city. "Where's it heading?" he whispered. A technician looked up, pale. "Jerusalem." The entire room went still. 2 weeks earlier, before the first shot was fired, the world believed peace was possible. In late May 2025, diplomats met in Geneva to discuss an uneasy ceasefire between Israel and Iran. The April and October attacks had left deep scars on both nations. Thousands displaced. Power grids shattered. The world watched, hoping this new summit would finally stop the bleeding. Sarah Keller was there, the American journalist who had become famous for covering the previous year's attacks. She had reported from war zones, but now she was walking through a marble hallway filled with diplomats and flashing cameras. For once, she thought, maybe she'd see a story that didn't end in flames. She adjusted her microphone and looked into the camera. After months of rising tension, both sides have agreed to hold talks aimed at avoiding another military confrontation. But behind these closed doors, the fear remains that one spark could start another war. She didn't know how right she was. Inside the meeting room, the atmosphere was tense. Israel's representatives demanded proof that Iran had stopped its nuclear enrichment program. Iran's delegation insisted Israel had violated its airspace multiple times in the past month. When the talks ended, there were no handshakes. No smiles. Just silence. And outside, in the parking lot, Sarah caught sight of something strange, 2 unmarked trucks being loaded with metallic crates under heavy guard. The crates were stamped with radiation hazard symbols. She raised her camera, but one of the guards stepped forward. "No pictures." Her gut twisted. "What's in those?" "Diplomatic supplies," the guard said flatly. But she knew that was a lie. By June 3, Israeli intelligence had intercepted a series of coded messages. Each carried the same phrase, "The promise will be completed in 12." No one knew what it meant. Daniel sat in his dark office that night, scrolling through intercepted frequencies. One of them caught his attention, a repeating pulse from deep inside western Iran. He ran it through a filter, converting it into an audio pattern. It sounded like a heartbeat. He frowned. "What are you hiding?" He sent the recording to Sarah. They hadn't spoken since the October attacks, but he trusted her instincts. When she listened to it, she immediately remembered those mysterious crates in Geneva. "Whatever they were moving," she said, "it wasn't diplomatic. I think it's connected." Daniel sighed. "Then we have 12 days to find out what it means." The first missile was launched on June 8. Iran claimed it was a response to Israeli airstrikes in Syria. Israel denied the attack, but by then, the missiles were already in the air. That single launch lit the match. By June 9, the conflict had expanded into a full-scale war. Both sides struck at least 150 locations, from oil fields to intelligence bases, across Iran, Israel, Iraq, and Syria. The world called it the 12-day war. On the third night, Sarah arrived in southern Israel. The air smelled like burning fuel. Roads were cracked, and the power lines hung like broken wires from the sky. She found Daniel in a field command post, surrounded by soldiers and glowing monitors. "You shouldn't be here," he said as she walked in. "You said 12 days, she replied. "This is day 3. I'm not leaving." He looked exhausted, eyes bloodshot. "Iran's hitting civilian networks. They're not aiming for bases anymore, they're aiming for people." A massive explosion shook the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling. Sarah flinched but kept her camera steady. "Then tell me," she said, "why are we still calling this defense?" Daniel didn't answer. On the 5th day, Iran introduced something new, a drone swarm unlike anything seen before. Hundreds of small aircraft moved like birds, dark against the morning sun, diving and rising together. They weren't just dropping bombs, they were broadcasting. Every time they passed over a communication tower, Israeli systems flickered. GPS signals went haywire. Missiles locked onto the wrong coordinates. Daniel slammed his fist against the table. "They're jamming us through live broadcasts. They're using the drones as moving transmitters." The only solution was to take out the swarm, all of it, at once. But the swarm wasn't over Israel anymore. It was flying west, toward the sea. Sarah followed him outside. "Where are they going?" He pointed to the horizon. "They're heading for the Mediterranean, and something's waiting for them." Moments later, radar screens lit up again. Hundreds of new blips, coming not from Iran, but from somewhere off the coast. A hidden launch site. "They've built offshore platforms," Daniel said. "Floating bases. They're striking from the sea." Sarah stared at him. "That's impossible." He shook his head. "Not anymore." The command radio crackled. "Multiple impacts expected within minutes. We've confirmed targets in Tel Aviv, Ashdod, and Haifa." Daniel grabbed his headset. "Evacuate the coastal perimeter. Now." But it was already too late. In the distance, a blinding flash lit up the horizon. Seconds later, the shockwave hit. Windows shattered. Power lines burst into flame. Sarah's camera fell from her hands as the ground threw her backward. The sound was deafening, like the sky itself breaking apart. When the dust cleared, the coastline was unrecognizable. Entire blocks had vanished. Daniel crawled out from the rubble of the command post, coughing. He looked around for Sarah. She was on the ground nearby, bruised but alive, her camera somehow still recording. She looked up at him and whispered, "You said 12 days. It's only day 5. Daniel nodded grimly. "Then the worst is still ahead." Above them, the morning sun struggled to break through the smoke. On a cracked monitor beside them, a message blinked repeatedly in red. "Sequence 2, initiate day 6. Daniel stared at it, realization dawning. "This isn't random," he said quietly. "It's a schedule." Sarah frowned. "A schedule for what?" Before he could answer, a low rumble echoed in the distance, deeper, longer, spreading through the air like thunder rolling underground. Daniel turned slowly toward the sound. From the east, a black cloud was rising, but it wasn't smoke. It was moving too fast. He squinted. Then his face went pale. "Oh no," he whispered. "They've opened a second front." Sarah grabbed her camera and stood, pointing it at the horizon. "What is that?" Daniel's voice was low, almost a whisper. "That's not missiles. That's armor." She zoomed in, and saw them. Dozens of tanks moving through the desert, headlights cutting through the dust. Iranian forces were crossing into Iraq. The war was no longer in the air. It was on the ground. Daniel stared at the advancing line, his pulse racing. "This just stopped being a war of machines," he said. "It's about to become something far worse." Sarah turned to him, her voice trembling. "Worse than this?" He didn't answer. He just looked east, where the horizon burned. The 12-day war was only halfway through. And the next 7 days would change the world forever.